Hello, I'm Ali Fakhruddin, and this is on the settler colonist ideologies of the West and the current state of the neoliberal project. I notice a basic ideology in the Western world at large. The settler colonist ideologies, in all different shapes and forms, seem to be nearly a uniquely Western innovation in its imperialist conviction. I have noticed back to the mythical narrative framework of the classical antiquity, to be surmised by the credo of Vidi Vini Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered, therefore might makes right. And that's how we're living today. From Alexander's conquest to the expansion of the Roman Empire and its fall, they held the common societal truth-based narrative that they felt the other, the ultimate other, was always inherently inferior and therefore savage or barbarian. This is such a classic dehumanization tactic, and it carries over to modern history books, specifically the pop history that is mass consumed by so many. It shows that the disputes over the claim of the name Roman Empire in the early first millennia was a battle to hold on to that right, the identity of supremacy. It just feels that this narrative is so hard baked into the consent that is manufactured in all of us as children, in school, in media, and culture at large, the culture industry. It's very telling to someone that lives in the US, when watching, foreign news sources, as I usually do, to see how absurd American exceptionalism is, which I consider a disease. And I have to admit, but I have to say that there is also a greater Western exceptionalism. For many years, up until about 11 years ago, I believed in the exceptionalism without realizing it, making appeals to the U.S. Constitution and the rights therein. Foolish of me. It is laid bare when reading the U.S. Constitution from the perspective of the thrones of the authors, the founders, just like tech CEOs call themselves, founders, modern day American cultural religion. Okay. That it is a document not only filled with contradiction, but also maliciously obfuscates. When we the people are mentioned in that document, it is obviously addressed to those who were in the room whilst it was being written. They were talking to and about wealthy European whites who owned other humans as slaves for labor, as property. This is about the basis of private property in the United States. They were talking They quabbled over the so-called tyranny of the majority in favor of rule by a privileged elite minority. Even today, the narrative framers and controllers of the story of the American experiment hold desperately to the patriot myth. Every time the honest conversation starts, it is shut down by the cultural gatekeepers and those in fear of loss of status, cognizant of this loss of status or not. In the U.S., the manufacturers of consent have seemed to take on the most cynical of roles recently. They are no longer in good faith. The Fourth Estate is supposed to be the organ that informs at large on matters of facts and truth, a beacon of light in the eternal dark that is the Arctic winter of falsehoods. Such institutions, such as the MIT, have gone so downhill that I occasionally have been able to read the headline and then describe to people the context of what the article will be about. Recently, I read a headline, and I don't know if this was in the New York Times, but it said, a surprising link shown between women, elderly women, and dementia. And I was able to defer just by that. It's talking about poor women. Don't take poor women seriously because they're demented and hysterical. Yes, and I read it, and that's what it's about. So, well, I'll tell you, there might be some truth to the substance that there's more poor people and there's more health problems. So let me get back to this. So yes, the address is in low-income areas at unknown cost. It was upsetting. That was despicable when I read that. There may be truth, of course, in part to the substance of the context, but the context is to the fame. The reason people in impoverished areas have more health problems, specifically in the U.S., is wholly the fault of the velvet private healthcare scam. This is the root cause. The privatization and neoliberalization of every aspect of society has created untenable material conditions. We will all die shortly. The U.S. has not even been a capitalist economy for some time. It is best described, in my opinion, as a techno-feudalist palace economy. There is no other explanation why the majority must suffer the pain of dejection and dispossessed of our minuscule personal property, and along with that, our dignity. This all while proud genocide dares brag about their evil acts whilst making profit hand over fist. No, that's too tame. Israeli bulldozer over fist. There are 27 empty homes in the United States per every one homeless person. That is a crime against humanity. It is used to manipulate the housing market and force a caste of homeless people in the United States to be exploited. Without stability, progress is impossible. And when I say stability, I mean material condition stability. These economic aspects are a major, and when I say major, I mean major, reason for the current state of affairs in the US and globally. The genocides and lack of care for human rights, the lack of empathy, it's despicable. It feels like the neoliberal project has entered a dangerous new phase, an extremely dangerous phase where everything is seen as zero sum. This is a sickness to the moral core of all values of humanity. God would weep. Saints and martyrs cry in agony. The righteous rage, whilst the immoral feel righteous and are told they are righteous. The ones who persecute the martyrs held as heroes, and God redefined as a racist white nationalist. Yes, Jesus wept.